Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. This may look like a regular rack mount server chassis. It even kind of tastes like a regular server chassis. However, this isn't just any regular server chassis. The Silverstone RM52 has some really awesome secrets hiding inside that could possibly make this your next rack mount gaming PC case or your next rack mount workstation case, because that's what I'm going to be doing with it. Let's crack it open. I want to show you what it's hiding. It's really freaking cool. Let's jump in.
You're making me go mad.
If you're new here, you may not know this, but before YouTube, I worked in data center and IT, and I really love server stuff. I really love rack mount gear. So when a case like this comes along, I just get really excited for it. So if I get too enthusiastic, let me know in the comments. Let's start off by getting inside the RM52. There's 2 screws on each of the sides that need to be removed. And then there's 2 screws on the rear. Then to remove the top panel, it's got this little handle here. You'll have to pull back and then you kind of lift it up because it's got a way of kind of latching on. Next, to remove the front panel, there's a little indentation along the top edge of it. And basically you just give it a yank and it will just pop out. There is a single included dust filter that is the size of the whole front panel and it can be easily removed. As I mentioned, it's magnetic, so it will just pop out and you can give it a clean, and this is a requirement for a case like this. I would not be running this without a dust filter, especially when I'm going to be using it because, yeah, my office can get dusty sometimes. On top, there's this bracket here, which serves a few purposes. First of all, this bracket here has GPU support and it's completely adjustable GPU support. And the reason why you'd have something like this is to space out GPUs and to stop them from touching each other and to stop them from flexing as well. But not only that, right? So GPU support systems in rack mount cases like this are pretty common. These ones are good because you can adjust their offset just by adjusting these screws, and you can see there's a whole different combination of cutouts to allow you to align it anywhere you really want, which is kind of nice. As well as that, on the other side of the bracket, it allows you to mount some drives to it as well, because despite this not being a case designed for storage servers, it does have pretty decent SSD compatibility. For hard disk and SSD support, for 2.5-inch drives, you've got 4 removable sleds. They're attached with these thumb screws here, really easy to remove. There's 2 on the side, and there's also 2 at the front of the case as well, but that's not the only thing. We've got this bracket here. Now, this bracket is a multi-function bracket. So typically, you can do 2 3.5-inch spinning rush drives in here. However, this is where this case begins to get very interesting, because for power supply support, if you really wanted to, you could mount 2 power supplies in here. And how would this work? So first of all, you could use a dual redundant power supply in here because it does have the bracket to support it, but this will allow you to install an SFX power supply, and there's this included extension cable which will come out the bottom, and then there's a removable cutout where the extension cable comes out above where your regular power supply would mount. So you can have 2. For regular power supply support, you can go between 160 or 190 millimeters, depending on the bracket inside the case, well, whether or not you remove it. As well as that, you can remove this bracket here and it will allow you to install regular redundant power supplies as well that use a different size standard. So they would typically screw into the holes where this bracket is installed. This is just an ATX adapter bracket. The RM52 has a single 140mm PWM fan pre-installed. However, this isn't the only pre-installed fan. Well, not technically, because included with the case, there's a little secret. There's an additional bracket which you mount above the PCIe cutouts with 2 pre-installed 80mm PWM fans. I'll show you how this works because this is really freaking cool, because the case has a lot of intake and, as usual server cases, not a lot of exhaust, but this adds exhaust. Above the cutouts where the expansion cards would typically go, there's this blank space here. There's also this rubber grommet. Serves a really good purpose. Essentially, the way this works is you would pass your fan cables through the rubber grommet, and then with this 80mm fan bracket, you clip it on and screw it in, and now you've got additional exhaust. Not only is it exhaust, it helps draw air across your expansion cards, like graphics cards and storage cards, for better airflow. This is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I'm glad that this is included with the case. But the RM52 goes one step further. So when we pulled the front panel up before, you probably noticed that there are mounting points for 3 120mm fans up the front. This is very cool. There's 2 screws that hold the front panel in place. And notice this, right? I can undo the front panel and the front panel still doesn't come out. It's got these 2 plastic pull down tabs, pull them down and it releases the front panel, which means on this bracket here, you can install 3 120mm fans or a 360mm liquid cooler. But that's not all the cooling, because it goes one step further again. There's another removable bracket. This bracket allows you to install 3 more 120mm fans or, wait for it, another 360mm liquid cooler. Notice how it's got this air scoop to prevent any turbulence with both radiators being in close proximity. What you'll notice is the regular fan mount for the frontmost fans or radiator is sitting lower down compared to the ones at the back. And the reason why they've done this is to offset the airflow and give each of the fan mounts their own opportunity for fresh air from the front of the case. So let me explain this again. Fresh air goes in here for the bottom set, and for the top set, which is not really top, but it's offset, has this whole section here for intake, and then the intake scoop behind it draws fresh air straight down and then through your fans or your radiators to the rest of the system. And the reason why this is pretty important is it actually creates 2 airflow paths. It will combine them somewhat inside the case, but it will direct more air towards your expansion cards, which is very important with these. Because this is a server chassis, it's got excellent motherboard support. It'll essentially support every size motherboard, other than like some weird bigger form factors, but anything you can buy off the shelf should fit in here quite easily. So ITX all the way up to SSI EEB, which is typically the largest motherboard specification you'll find for something you could potentially buy. Also, because this is a server chassis, it has a fully removable motherboard tray. It doesn't look like it, but you'll notice there are these 6 holes here and they're screwed in from the back. So if you needed to replace a motherboard quickly without physically needing to go into the case with a screwdriver, remove those 6 screws, drop your motherboard back in and then fasten them up and your motherboard's installed. How good is that? Because this is a 5U chassis, it's got very, very good air cooler support with a couple caveats. Let me explain. Because if you're using an air cooler, there are a couple things to look out for. So with this, 192 mils is the absolute maximum. That's the height of a full 5U case minus a couple millimeters. Now, because this case has this retention bracket to help hold your GPUs and whatnot in place, you do lose a little bit of that height, and that reduces that round to 182 mils. But this is where this can begin to get a little bit more confusing, because personally, I wouldn't be building a system without this installed. Because this is such a big case and it's quite heavy, it does add additional structural rigidity. However, it doesn't really need it. Like, the case has minimal flex when this isn't here, but you know, just for peace of mind, and because you're spending so much money on a chassis like this, it's a good idea to have this installed. Maximum GPU length is a bit of an interesting one with the RM52 as well. You're installing a regular GPU in here, and you've got your radiators and everything mounted up, and it's liquid cooled and all that fancy goodness. You're gonna get a maximum length of 365 mils, but if you don't want any of it, and you don't want any fans installed, basically, you have the length of the whole case, which is around about 512 millimeters. But that maybe it's something you do, but I don't think that's going to be very common if I'm being honest with you guys. But yeah, if you wanted to, you could. The RM52 also, much like the RM44 that we checked out last year, has a case intrusion switch with a very satisfying click. For front I/O, this is where it's more reminiscent of a desktop case with a couple extras. So first of all, you've got the power button with the integrated power light, you've got your reset switch, you've got 2 network activity lights. Depending on your interface, you can connect those directly into your interface. Some motherboards will support this as well. There's also a storage activity light, USB Type-C, and 2 USB Type-A ports. Much like the Silverstone RM44 that I bought last year, this also supports running in a desktop mode. So you can put these feet on the case and you can stand the case upright if you like as well. And this is kind of handy for people who want to have that industrial look for their desktop PC. I think it's very, very cool. But because this is a rack mounted case, it comes with a set of rack mount ears, and the ears will attach to the side of the case. They screw in, it comes with all the mounting gear for that. As well as that, the handle then mounts to that. There's also a set of these PWM extension cables for those 2 80mm fans that mount to the back of the case as well. If you're serious about rack mounting one of these cases, you can purchase these rack mount rail kits. This doesn't come with the case, but this is the RMS0522. This is a toolless rail solution that is, if I'm being honest, pretty freaking cool. And this is the most compact form of this particular rack rail. And this rail will support very deep server racks. But to pull it apart and actually get it mounted is quite easy. It's toolless. Essentially what you want to do is you want to slide the rail out. We'll get to a point where you can keep sliding the rail and it will stop. Now, we're actually mounting this section here to the chassis. When you pull it out, you'll notice there's a bunch of colored tabs here. So the white tab means it's to remove this rail from the rest of the rail system. And this blue one is if you're pushing it back in when it's on the rail once it's mounted. Let me show you how this works. So first of all, we want to remove this to mount it to the chassis. We push the white clip in and then the rail slides all the way out, right? Let's say you're sliding this back into the rack and you're like, oh, it's stopped. It's not going back in. This is where the blue tab comes in, and you want to push the blue tab in and then it will collapse the rest of the rail, and then your server will be mounted into your rack. But to mount the rails to the case is even easier, right? So we'll do that whole process again. So we'll pull this all the way out. We want to take this out, push the white tab in, slide it out. So basically how this works is that blue tab, you want this to be faced towards the front of your case, because when you're pushing your case back into your rack, you want to push those in so it goes back in. But all you need to do here is align the cutouts with this part of the rail with the little knobs on the case. And once you've lined them up, all you need to do is pull it back and it clips into place. That's it, no tools. And now this doesn't go anywhere. Let's say you're ready to put it back in your rack. You would then, let's say this is the edge of your server rack. You basically just push it in. It'll come to that dead stop again because you need to push the blue tab in to slide the rail the rest of the way, and then it's mounted into your rack. But that's not the only cool thing about these rack rails. You put these through the holes in the cage and you'd pull this tab up and then it would lock it into place, and then they would be attached and they wouldn't move. To lock it into the front edge of your cage, you have that little mechanism there as well. If you're wondering why I would need something like this, or you would need something like this, I've got a very particular use case. You may or may not know this, but for my personal rigs, I don't have RGB and I typically don't look at them. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm a data center guy. I love rack mount stuff. So what I'm doing is, because we now own this place and we've been renovating and doing everything that we ever wanted to do in this house, I'm rack mounting my own personal workstations. Well, not personal workstations, the ones that we use to edit the videos on the channel. I have two. I have one Xeon and one Threadripper system, and the Xeon and Threadripper, they're backups of each other. So basically if one breaks, I've got another monster to take over the workload. But how this came about was I was looking at open frame 12 RU racks on wheels, And I've been looking at them for a while, and I just asked Mwave, I'm like, hey, do you guys have these in stock? Because they're such a weird niche thing. Like, would it be possible to get one of these in so I could buy it? And then because Mwave has been supporting the channel for the longest time, they were like, you don't need to pay for this. We got you. We'll hook you up because this is a really awesome project. And you guys just bought your house, so you probably don't have much money left. So yeah, shout out to Mwave for being absolutely awesome and helping this awesome project come together. Also, shout out to Silverstone for sending us 2 of these and the rails for this as well. Video is not sponsored. I just said to Silverstone, I'm like, hey, I've got this idea. This is what I want to do. And they were like, yeah, of course, like we got you. So yeah, shout out to Silverstone. You guys are amazing. I'm so excited to get building with this. So I think let's just chuck some hardware in. Let's chuck the Xeon in here. All right, we're gonna chuck the motherboard in. I'm not sure if I'm gonna remove that rear fan yet, but let's just keep that Silverstone fan for now. I can swap it out at a later date because that's why I like rack mounting stuff, because I can change stuff really easily. I didn't show you guys putting the standoffs in, but it comes with the standoffs that you need to install. So I just did that quickly off camera just so I could speed up this part of the video, because if I'm being honest here, guys, I'm super excited for this because I get excited for my own computers. Yay. And this is a Xeon. This is a Sapphire Rapid Xeon. It's fast enough. I think this one is the 28 core. It's got 128 gigs of DDR5 RDIMMs. It's the ASUS W790 Ace, Pro Ace. I'll put a PCPartPicker list if that's something you want to see, or I'll link to the video where I built with this and compared it to a Mac Studio. So there is that too. And surprisingly, the Mac Studio holds up really well to this thing, which actually shouldn't be a surprise because the Mac Studio is badass. I also have one of those on my desk too. This is something I didn't show earlier in the video, but I'm gonna remove that hard drive cage that's in there and also the cage that's used for an SFX power supply. To remove that, there's 4 screws on the outside of the case. Now this cage for hard disks or the SFX power supply can be removed quite easily. Just slide it forward and lift it up and away we go. And there's a reason for this, because if that bracket was in there, our giant power supply just would not fit. And this is the power supply that was in the same system I had when I built it initially. And I'm keeping it because I've allocated this power supply to this system a long time ago. Yep, I'm crazy, guys. 6 intake fans are happening. It's a thing. Oh, this is crazy. I am so excited for this because, yeah, I've been wanting to do this for ages. Don't get excited much anymore, but this is what gets my jimmies rustled in a good way. And bang. Oh, that is so awesome. That is completely ridiculous and overkill. I love everything about this so much. All right, I'm installing the rear fans. I've decided for this build, I'm gonna use the stock Silverstone fans for the Threadripper system. I'll probably swap these 80mm fans out to 80mm Noctuas that I've got, but I only have 2, so I had to pick which was gonna be the one that I wanted. Anyway, this one here is getting the Silverstone ones, and just put 2 screws in. All the screws and everything are included, don't worry. All right, lastly, the GPU's going in. We've got the Radeon Pro W7900. I'm installing this in the bottom slot, well, close to the bottom slot, because I like to reserve access to higher slots in case I want to add a storage card and whatnot. And HEDT boards and these type of CPUs have so many PCIe lanes that doesn't really matter. All these slots are full by 16 PCIe Gen 5 slots, so it's all good. I kept the cable management pretty basic here. I didn't go too crazy with it. I hid what I could, but again, like I didn't really use any zip ties except for one right here to hold the fan cable to the fan frame. And that's it really, and a bunch of just like Velcro ties that I had and just nothing fancy, but it is so big in a way that it's really easy to hide things in plain sight, especially when we put the other bracket back on top in a sec. That'll cover up anything here. You'll also notice that there is a 12 volt high power cable in this bundle here. I left it in just in case I decide to change the GPU at a later date. And the thing that I like about the Radiant Pro, especially for these type of builds, is as with any pro level card or any workstation card, the power connectors are on the end. So it frees up the whole area here for cabling just to make it a bit clearer and gives everything a bit of a cleaner airflow path. All right, let's install the handles. These are very easy to install. There's 4 screws that hold them in on each side. There's a spare screw. Before we button all this up and rack it, and actually I need to build a second one of these in a minute, let's see if it works. That always happens. I always play myself. Turn on the power supply, Nicholas. Okay. Oh, it's pretty quiet. It's booting into my second editing PC now. Yep. Beautiful. Good to go. All right. As I mentioned earlier, installing the rails in a rack are really easy. This is my StarTech 12RU open frame floor rack with wheels. It's really good for my type of use case because, yeah, I want to be able to move my rack around as well. To install this, you want to install it in the second RU slot. And I'm just going to eyeball this because I've done this quite a few times in the past. It kind of just clips in like that. You can see that the mechanism is latched on, and anytime you unlock it and push it back, it locks back into place. The one on the front is the same, just line it up with that 2RU spot, and then you push it in and the rail locks into place. And now we can slide the server in. If you can't do this on your own, make sure you get yourself some help. But I can do this one on my own because the server's not too heavy. Well, the workstation's not too heavy. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna slide out these rails to this point, all right? And then we're going to kind of guide them in like that, making sure that they actually sit in the tracks, and then lift the whole machine onto it. Like I mentioned before, it's going to come to a hard stop once it's sitting on the rails properly, and that's because we need to push in the blue tabs. The blue tabs are now on the side of the case, and you push them both at the same time, and then there you go. It is absolutely gorgeous. I love that. And to pull it back out, all you need to do is just pull it out. It will come to a dead stop, and then that's when you need to use the blue tabs again. But otherwise, you're good to go. How smooth is that? I love it. I love that so much. These kind of videos are my favorite kind of videos to make because I get to hang out with you guys and I get to do something that I'm really, really interested in. And that is build rack mount stuff, especially servers and workstations. That's just my jam. I used to do it for a job. I just love doing this kind of stuff. It's just fun. And I like the fact that it doesn't look like it's powerful unless you know what's inside it. Kind of like a sleeper in a way. And the way it's stored in the rack is nice too because it's super convenient. You can just slide it in, hide it, want to fix something, slide it out, pull it out, and you're good to go. And this thing turned out very, very cool. But I'm a little bit torn because Silverstone sent us 2 of these to do 2 builds for the rack. And I don't know if I want to make a video for the second one because right now I've still got my 3 to 4 year old Threadripper Pro system and I really want to build something brand new to put in the other case. Do I get new hardware and then do a build doing like the craziest new Threadripper system for that? Or do I do a video transplanting my current workstation and show you guys what I've already got? Even though I've shown that hardware 4 billion times on the channel, but it's just so rock solid that it's hard to let it go. Like this Xeon system will edit our videos no problem. But yeah, just let me know if that's something you want to see or if there's some other type of server or networking video you guys are interested in. If you want me to show you how I've got the rack set up, it's got like 10 gig networking. It's got Thunderbolt 4 in the rack too for very special reasons, which we will cover later because we've got a very special Thunderbolt 4 device in my rack. But yeah, let me know please because I'm just not sure what you guys want to see when it comes to this kind of content. The truth is I'll probably just transplant my Threadripper Pro system into the other one of these off camera and then show you the whole rack once it's all put together because We're getting close to being able to show you guys all of the office and studio upgrades that we've made. And these machines in these cases are one of the last things that we need to do for that. So yeah, please let me know. Please let me know, because I don't know what you guys want from me. And it's always good to hear your guys' feedback on these type of videos. Again, shout out to Silverstone for sending over these cases. This case does not come cheap. And if you're interested in something like the Silverstone RM52, they're going for around 520 US dollars, or around about 800 Aussie dollars at the time of filming this video. Insane, but what you're getting is really good cooling, really good compatibility with everything. And like I said, like the only reason why I reached out to them was because I've bought so many of these Silverstone cases over the years, and they've been really, really good. Now, if you're interested in the rail kit, I'm gonna say you're gonna find them anywhere between 100 to 150 Aussie dollars. And I would say anywhere from 70 to 100 US dollars at the time of filming this video. I'll give you exact pricing when I find it. I know that Silverstone sent us this case, but that's how all cases work on the channel. We get sent cases from all manufacturers, but when something really stands out is when I'm gonna say positive things. And the RM52, despite it being expensive, you're getting what you pay for. It's a very, very good rack mount case. And that's it. Yeah, let us know if you want to see more. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peek, we seek, and watch something up here about the, let's say the RM44. I love that case. We're still running that as our main storage server case. The way we've got that set up, watch this video, because you're gonna learn something really cool, and it's not how you think it is, or something. I don't know. What am I saying?